Got to remember to play the right intro.
It's Andy Campbell! It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero! A superhero! Breakthrough! It's taken a while, but it's been worth the wait for Cardiff City!
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. And this is a special edition of the Andy Campbell Football Show Extra. The show is available live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, Periscope. And of course, Ace Podcast Nation, you're home to many great shows featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So please follow us on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can find the links to all of those and more in the description below, as well as the closing credits. And you can follow the Andy Campbell Show at AC Footy Show, and that's everywhere, every social media platform that you could think of. And just as we wait for the chat and everything to fill up, a quick and important shout out first of all to Black Diamond Sports for their help and support. Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. For more information, you can visit their social media pages, links in the description and the closing credits again. They've also got an incredibly nice new Flash website, which I believe is it. Well, no, it is in the description because I put it there myself. And check it out. I encourage you. I was making out like I've got like a social media guy who does it for me. Nope, I did it myself. And of course, thank you to Darren Ralston and Bespoke Financial for sponsoring today's show, which is the Andy Campbell Football Show, and we're just going to have a quick word from them.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so we wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
And of course, a big thank you to Bespoke Financial. Bespoke Financial specialise in life insurance, critical illness, income protection, mortgages and sports cover. Check out their website, their social media, all of which is in the description below. Tonight we have a slightly different show, as there's no championship football, so no championship show tonight. We're going to be discussing refereeing in detail, from V.A.R. to goal line technology to the referees being demoted from the Premier League to the Championship when they're terrible, as well as everything in between.
Oops.
Joining me to get into this controversial yet a little bit fascinating subject. First, we've got the goal collector, my usual co-host, the host with the most, they may say, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker, Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I'm glad I'm in the middle. I think it could be a bit of a slanging match. I can just keep you apart. I think this is going to be hilarious. By the way, I'm really looking forward to this. This is I've not normally had a good word to say about referees, but I think at the minute referees are taking a bit of a hammering, and rightly so. I think and we're going to go about it later on. But I think it's going to play into Jeff's hands a little bit that how strong refereeing was back when I played than it is now. But we'll go into that. But yeah, really excited about tonight. Indeed.
Just before I bring Jeff in, a little bit of sort of, what would you call it? Gardening, whatever you want to call it. And sadly, our guest for Monday, Keith Gillespie, which we were really, really looking forward to, he can't make it anymore this Monday, so he's going to come on at a later date. But I am delighted to say that we will be joined by former Scotland international, ex-Middlesbrough, and former assistant manager at Hibs, Mr. Robbie Stockdale, on Monday. Which that should be a good chat, mate. I'm looking forward to that one. Be interesting.
Yeah, as I say, I'm gutted that Keith can't make it, but he's coming on again. It's just one of those things he couldn't make. But delighted to have Robbie come on Monday. He did make a joke of saying he's been waiting for his invite for so long. But hey, he's got a great story to tell. He had a really good career. Englishman playing for Scotland, so we'll see how that one pans out. But no, he's still doing bits now with.
Oh, Andy, your sound's gone, mate, completely. You still there? Oh, Andy, your sound's gone, mate, completely. I couldn't hear a word you said then. Joining us is one of the top referees of his time. He went toe-to-toe with footballers like Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Steven Gerrard, V.A.R, Dennis Wise and more. And I'm very happy to welcome former Premier League referee, Mr. Jeff Winter, to the show. Welcome, Jeff. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, Jeff. Great pleasure.
Right,
Great to have you on finally. And this is going to be edge of the seats thing. I think it's going to be very controversial. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be interesting, mate. Like, not that I've got a bad opinion of referees in the current climate, but I have been banging on about it for about 12 months, at least. That the refereeing has been absolutely terrible in pretty much every level. Yeah, well, it's not. You can't say it's been good. Oh, red card already. This is terrible. 6 minutes in, red card. Jeez, what's going on?
Sin bin.
Done already.
Early on.
Well, that's it though, and that's part of my problem actually, which we'll get to. Is I feel like they're very a lot of the referees these days, they're quite weak in terms of they kind of let the players push them around a little bit, whereas like when you were refereeing, the players were a lot more aggressive in their attempts to intimidate referees. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but it's not difficult to find loads of photos and videos of yourself and other referees being surrounded.
I think it's a totally different game now. It's a different game with the players, with everything, the finances, and most definitely it's different with the referees. It's never been easy to be a referee at the highest level. But, I sometimes think now when people ask me questions about it, I wish they hadn't even invited me on, because it was a different world then. It's different games change. And I see things that are happening on the football field. And like you, like other fans and players, I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And, I don't honestly know at times that I'm equipped to talk about refereeing and the game in the present era, because it's changed so much. You rightly say, in our day, a player said something to you, and referees like me said something to them, and that was the end of it. A few choice words said as Andy can bear out. But then it was over, it was done, and it wasn't about cards, and it wasn't about discipline and video technology and everything else. The game is, I think it was 2004, a long time ago, but it seems light years ago. The game is so different now.
I think, Jeff, though, I think that's a concerning bit for me, that when you've just said there that you don't think, in your opinion, you don't think that you're qualified enough to give your comments or speak about the good and the bad, what are happening about refereeing. But you know what I mean, and that's my concern, that people who've been there and done it think that they are qualified to do it and talk about it. And I don't know if other viewers are aware that Jeff used to come into Middlesbrough training ground pre-season, tell us about the new rules what are getting implemented in the Premier League. He also came in and refereed the behind closed doors training games and things. And like Jeff said, things happen on the pitch which sometimes should just stay on the pitch. That Jeff would get a bit of stick, he would give stick back, and that's where it would end. You know what I mean? Jeff would quite quickly shut players up and bring them down to size and embarrass them a little bit. And instead of just brandishing a card and sending them off, which I just think is just a cowardly act sometimes, just give it back, forget about it, move on. There's certain things that you can't ignore, and I totally agree. But there's not every incident is a yellow card, is a talking to, is about the referee. And and I was more gutted that you weren't allowed to referee our games, because obviously with it being a Middlesbrough fan, it obviously wasn't allowed. But I think that was when you have so much respect for a referee and you don't get to be officiated by that ref. It's just not, doesn't seem fair sometimes when you get stuck with some of the others.
I don't think if I was refereeing nowadays, I don't think I'd last 5 minutes. I honestly don't. The style, and it wasn't just me. There was other referees around at that time, and I'm not having to go to today's referees because they can only do what the bosses tell them to do. I think a lot of the problems in the game aren't with the referees; they're with the interpretation, the laws, and what they have to do. Because if you don't, a referee's no different to any other employee. If you don't carry out the boss's instructions, you're out. So you'll see. It's like, I'll give you a daft example that's been in since my time. Show me a referee who believes that he should caution a player for removing his shirts. No one wants to do that, but they've got to do it.
Yeah.
They're the rules. It's no different to working in a bank or working in a factory. If the rules are that you must do something and you say, well, I'm not doing it, you're not going to be in a job. So, sometimes the referees get the stick. I'm not defending them, but it's not really their fault because those are the instructions. And, the style that we had in our day, where, I sum it up nowadays when I'm now not a referee, I'm a fan. I'm back to being what I was before I started refereeing. And I often ask the comment that at the highest level, when was the last time you saw a referee smile? When was the last time you saw a little bit obvious banter going on between the player and the referee? And now it seems as if the authorities don't want that. To me, man management is the most important aspect of any referee, because you use the word respect, and if a referee hasn't got the respect for the players, he's got no chance of controlling that game. And that's what I mean about being a different game now to what it was then.
I think that goes both ways though, Jeff, as well, though, because I don't think as well, you're on about laughing and joking. I don't think players have the respect for the referees that they used to have, and they don't have a laugh and a joke in the tunnel. There used to be loads of banter flying about ready before a game. There's not that anymore. There used to be loads of banter in the coin toss. Doesn't happen anymore. It's all quite serious. It's all because I don't know if the cameras are intimidating
but
people.
Ange, do you think that's fun? Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Do you think that banter between players, do you think that's changed with technology as well in a different way, whereby they all do it via text and WhatsApp groups and things like that, because they don't want to, they get crucified whatever they do, where whether like look at Paul Pogba, for instance. Whenever he has a laugh and a joke with the opposing player as he's in the tunnel or after the game, he either A, gets told he doesn't care, B, gets told he's not taking it seriously, or C, he's trying to engineer a move to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's difficult because if Jeff stood in the tunnel and me and Jeff are having a bit of banter and I lose, it looks like I'm not focused on my game. If Jeff gives me a decision in my favour, it looks like that I've influenced his decision. So I fully understand why it doesn't happen, but I think sometimes it's good for the just the whole environment of it. It's not a game where like the fans aren't as close as players aren't as close to referees, linesmen as they used to be. We used to be first name terms sometimes, and the respect used to start there, and it doesn't now. And I also think it doesn't because of, I don't think players, or think players do know that the referees are the person in the middle of the stadium, but they're not really refereeing the games as much as they should, in my opinion, as much as they should be doing, because you've got somebody in a stand or somebody in a room somewhere who's refereeing a football match. So how can I have a conversation with Jeff in the middle of the field if he hasn't got a clue what's going on because he's waiting for his boss to tell him? So
I agree with you, Andy, on that one. I cannot get my head round. It's not a case of the referee wanting to be the big I am, but if you are the referee refereeing 22 footballers, and you have come in at me, what's happening, ref? Hang on a minute, I'll let you know. It's a penalty, and I'm sending you off. But it's not me that's giving the penalty, and then I've got to deal with the players after that. And the players,
reprimand,
what you sent him off for?
But then, Jeff, what about? Sorry,
I just don't understand, because I'm not out there and not doing it nowadays. I think your control, unless the players have now sort of realised, well, don't have a go at him, it's not his fault, it's somebody that's watching a video screen. I think VAR could be helpful, but I just don't think it's being used in the most efficient way.
I agree. Totally agree.
I agree. It's almost like there's a decision and the referee's going, I don't know. But ask him. He'll let us know whether. And I don't understand why. It seems to be happening in other countries. I don't know why somebody at Stockley Park can't say, Jeff, I think you'd better have a look at that. And then if I'm going across, I'm looking at the screen, and then I'm sending you off, or I'm giving the penalty. I think that's much easier to sell than the referee out there in the middle just being a puppet of the system, really.
I totally agree, Jeff. I think I would love to see referees go over and look at their decision. So if you send someone off and someone says, I think you need to look at that again, look at it again and say, yes, I made an error of judgment, or the other way around and say, yes, sending off, I only give a yellow. And someone's giving you that little bit of time to think about your decision, instead of saying it's a red card and you having to get the red card out. Because I've been all for referees coming out after a game and doing an interview about why you made this decision, because players have to do it, managers have to do it. So for me, referees potentially could have to do it, but why should a referee have to come out at the end of a game and explain a decision which wasn't done by themselves? It's madness, really, for me.
On that subject, Andy, during my time, the authorities used to they didn't want you to go on after a game. But if you as a referee decided to go on, the sort of background attitude was, well, on your own head be it, If you say something and get it wrong, we're coming down like a ton of bricks. But the other side of it, is that if somebody wants to speak to you after a game, they're not wanting to speak to you about the 99 decisions you made in that game that were good. They're not wanting to speak to you about the advantage that led to a goal or the good management that kept the player on. They want to talk to you about an incident that they've seen in slow motion how many times, because they're of the opinion you got it wrong.
Yeah.
So, a referee coming straight onto the telly after the game to, the referee is made to look a little bit of a fool, because if everybody else has seen it in slow motion and it wasn't a penalty and you've given the penalty and you ask me, well, why did you give it? I can tell you why I gave it. But you're all like laughing, thinking, well, shouldn't he have seen it first? And,
I totally agree.
If I've seen the rerun of it, and I've got to be honest and hold the answer and say, well, look, from where I was, it looked like the defender got the ball. But now, having seen it again, I realise I got it wrong. Now, I think that actually helps the referee, because he's showing he's human, he's showing he's honest. But the media don't want to talk to a referee after a game. They don't want to talk to them about anything positive, anything good. They just want to talk about the perception that he's got something wrong.
I totally agree.
The whole thing with VAR, as I understood it, I'm dead fortunate, me. I watched Middlesbrough play in the Championship. I watched Rangers play in the SPL. And then I watched, non-league teams where I don't have VAR. The few games that I've been to or watching it on the telly, as a fan now I'm talking about, to me it spoiled the whole experience. You've scored a goal. Look, go back to the most famous goal of your career, the one you scored for Middlesbrough against Man United. They all thought they were going to go on about one at Wembley, didn't they? But you've scored that goal at Wembley for Cardiff. Massive, massive match, probably the biggest match in domestic football. The elation, the joy, I saw it in the introduction. You've all ran off, across, jumped on top of each other. Everybody's going mad. The fans are going mad. Now what happens? There's this sort of pregnant pause where we all sit there and wait.
Yeah.
Is it a goal? And that to me wasn't what VAR, judging whether your big toe was offside. VAR was supposed to be, and I'm probably wrong in saying this, but I thought it was like where the referee has made a mistake, and sometimes, if something happens on the blind side of the official, the Thierry Henry famous handball, where he's cleverly handled the ball out of the view of the referee, well, let's have VAR. Let's correct that big wrong decision. Now it seems as if still errors are being made and VAR isn't changing them, so we're not getting, we're not getting the decisions right, which is what it was all about, unless I've been mistaken.
Well, that is what it's supposed to be about, completely. We got some cracking questions already in the chat, which I'm going to circle back to in a minute. I just wanted to circle back to something which you said a few minutes back, Jeff, about the referees not wanting to be necessarily the big I am or the centre of attention. But what about referees like Mark Clattenburg, who seemed to thrive on the attention being on them, and people feel, whether it's rightly or wrongly...
Simon, what makes you say that?
I think...
You're obviously watching a game of football now, and you can mind read, but you've got an opinion. What gives you the impression that if a referee's got the balls to make a big decision, he wants to be the centre of attention?
Well, no. I don't necessarily mean about that, though.
If he hasn't got the balls to make the big decision, then he's a coward. He's bottled out. A referee in my day and a referee nowadays, he can't win because he's never going to keep both sets of fans, both sets of players happy. If he does make the big decisions, there's a name that I thought you might throw up. At the beginning of a couple of seasons ago, Mike Dean was giving penalties for pushes and shoves, and everybody who'd been saying before, there's too much holding in the penalty area, referees should clamp down. Well, all of a sudden, Mike Dean comes out at the beginning of the season, gives half a dozen penalties, and then people are turning around and saying, oh, it's Mike Dean, he wants to be the centre of attention. Now, hang on a minute, you can't have it both ways.
No, I agree. I agree completely on that point about Mike Dean, because people was, like you say, they wanted the holding to stop, and then when they tried to stop it, they moan. My issue with Mark Clattenburg is that I feel like he would almost make situations worse or more hostile, or something which was maybe nothing turned into like this big drama because of the way he handled it. Now, it might have been, it's just his personality maybe, and that combined with the certain players maybe riles him up a little bit. But he was the one referee to me over the years which sticks out as someone who thrived on being controversial or the centre of attention, or he was a bit came across. I've never met him, I never spoke to him, and I gotta say I would love to speak to him and I'd love to interview him. But he came across a certain way to people. I've never met him, but I'm watching, he came across in a certain way.
I'm surprised. I can think of many referees over different generations that you could have mentioned as you thought he was this and you thought he was that. Mark Clattenburg, and this is just a matter of opinion, he didn't come across to me in that manner. And I don't know why we're talking about him, because he's been finished for about God knows how many years now.
He must be the Man United fan in me, I suppose.
Well, I was going to say, because usually when someone's got a gripe about the referee, and the greatest thing about football fans, I'll go on the after dinner circuit now, and someone will come up to me and they'll go, I'm never going to forgive you. And I said, what's that? I said, the day you did this, the day you did that. And I'm saying,
football fans don't forget.
Wasn't that about 1998, 1999? He said, it was. I remember it, 1999. I said, well, I'm glad to see you've got over it then. And, when people have a pop about referees, quite often, and it'll happen about me, as any other referee, it usually comes out of the fact that they don't like that particular individual, because back in the year dot, they give a terrible decision in the fans' opinion against their side. So from that day on, that referee's crap, that referee's useless, he's arrogant, he's everything. And when it all boils down to everything, it stems from one penalty decision 25 years ago or something.
Yeah, so, football fans have got long memories, haven't they?
We'll beg to differ on that one.
Indeed, I'm sure it won't be the first time in the next 45 minutes. But I tell you what, anyone in the live chat, am I wrong about the way Mark Clattenburg came across? Maybe it's just me. But I'm open to opinions. Probably most things are just me. All right, let's have a look at some chat, some live chat. We've got some cracking questions, some strange questions, some questions nonetheless. Let's have a look then. Leslie Coates says, question for Jeff: were you supposed to referee the cup final the year Middlesbrough got there, and you had to miss it because you were from Middlesbrough?
Well, there was a strong rumour that I was going to referee the Carling Cup final that year, or whatever they called it back in that day era. And Middlesbrough got to... I remember the second leg at the Riverside, Middlesbrough-Arsenal, of the semi-final. And one of the bosses from the Football League was there. Middlesbrough have won. I'm ecstatic, like Andy, Middlesbrough lad, born and bred, they're our hometown team. And I'll be honest with you, hand on heart, if you'd have said to me at the start of the night, Middlesbrough can get to the cup final or you can referee the cup final, I was a Boro fan long before I was a referee. I'm a Boro fan a long time after I finished being a referee, and I was more delighted. And people were thinking, aren't you disappointed you've missed out on the League Cup final? I tell you something, that day down at Cardiff when Middlesbrough won the cup was one of the highlights of my life, let alone anything to do with Middlesbrough Football Club or refereeing. So, and as it turned out, fortunately, come the end of the season, they gave me the FA Cup final. So to be quite honest, I won on both.
You certainly did, Jeff. On that then, Jeff, how do they decide who gets the games? Is it on performance? Is it on experience? What's it on?
Well, in my case, it was my appointment at the FA Cup final. In some people's eyes, was quite controversial because, for some bizarre reason, the powers that be in the FA usually only want the referee of the cup final to be someone who's on the international list. Right. So whilst I'd be refereeing the top games every week in the Premier League, because I wasn't on the international list, they wouldn't want you to get the cup final. But what you said there, I think that particular season, the marks that I'd been given must have hopefully warranted it. So they decided to give me it, which was brilliant because it actually turned out to be, because in those days you had to retire at a certain age. Yeah. So obviously I'd got to 35 and they decided I was ready to go. And you bought that, you two. I'm quite fit. You sat there with a straight face. I was obviously a little bit older than 35, but I'd hit retirement age, and I had to go. So it was the last game of my career, which was another thing that the authorities normally wouldn't be happy with, because if you were one of these self-centered, controversial, it's all about me referees that Simon accuses some of my former colleagues of being, then they wouldn't really want you to do the FA Cup final as your final match, because, what
make it all about you.
What a chance to make a name for yourself, not in Roy Keane. You'd sell a few books on the back of that, wouldn't you? So,
certainly would, Jeff. But also, Jeff, as well, they also had to pick a strong enough character as well, because obviously Millwall, I think, were in the Championship as well, I think, in the game. So it was a big game for them to try and put one over United. And obviously Dennis Wise factor, the Roy Keane factor, that when those two come to blows at the best of times or the worst of times, there's always going to be an incident. But, so they had to have somebody as well who was going to be strong enough to handle these kind of players, because, we talk about the V.A.Rs, the Vinnie Joneses, the Roy Keanes, etc. But you've got to be some kind of person to stand in the middle and officiate and look after those kind of lads and those kind of players.
Well, to be quite honest, if you're refereeing at Premier League level, every referee should meet that criteria that you've just said, because it's not just about an FA Cup final. The previous week, a team could have been fighting to stay in the Premier League or fighting to get into the Champions League. And everything you said there about the attributes needed to referee the game should be the same for every game. Now, getting back to what Simon said earlier, and I agree with him totally, and what you've touched on as well, you've got to have the personality, you've got to have the strength of character, you've got to have the courage. Otherwise, you might as well not go onto the pitch. It just seems in a different, and you touched on it, Andy, the game is different now. Life is different now, there seemed to be a lot more respect. There seemed to be a lot more banter back then.
But I
Back
also
in the,
think as
back
well,
in the day, Jeff, they used to call refs sir, didn't they? Back in the like in the 70s and 80s.
It used to be more prevalent in Scotland. You know, if you were doing a pre-season friendly, and funnily enough, the lads I've been out walking with today, we were talking about, you know, when Falkirk and Dundee used to come down to the northeast and they'd have a training base near Durham and they'd play against non-league teams in pre-season games. And as a referee, you'd go out there and, you know, the English teams, the players are calling the ref, or it's the New Year Jeff, or if they weren't happy with the decision, something a little bit stronger. But all the Scottish players used to say, hey, sir, you know, when they're calling for a penalty or a throw-in or something, they'd always call you sir, and it was a little bit unnerving because you've done all your games and you're not being...
I also think as well... is he gone?
Yeah, I think someone's just...
I also think as well. I think in terms of games, we're on about Champions League game there. The FA Cup game there being obviously the years ago, Jeff. I think it was the pinnacle of the players as well. It was the biggest game. Nowadays, staying in the Premier League's probably a bigger achievement, and the Champions League and trying to achieve that. So, like you say now, every league game is probably more important or on par with an FA Cup final. So every game is an FA Cup final then.
Slightly different subject, but you know, you've touched on it. To me, the FA Cup, as a fan, was always so special.
Oh, don't, Jeff, because I beat a drum about it as a player. I played in every round, all the way up to I think semi-final and final. I was involved in both of them with Middlesbrough. And for me, it's the most important football competition in the world, far bigger than the Champions League. Well, it should have a Champions League place.
The most exciting days of the football season as a fan, and also even more so from my point of view as a referee. You used to like the opening day of the season, obviously, because you know everybody's going to win the league. Everybody thinks they've got a chance. But the really important days for me, and I always wanted to have games here, was the first round.
Jeff's gone. I think someone's phoning him, so that's why it cuts out like that. But the thing is, he's back. Yeah,
the first round of the FA Cup, and I remember one particular game, Bradford City against Burton Albion. And Burton Albion were, in those days, you know, a non-league team. And absolutely unbelievable atmosphere. You know, everybody's come from Burton, and special game. I remember another one, third round, because the next one is big important date to me, is the third round of the FA Cup. And I had West Ham United versus Emley. And, you know, Emley are a non-league team from near Huddersfield, down at Upton Park, the bowling ground. And, you know, I think West Ham won 1-0 with a goal in about the 88th minute. And that was the magic of the FA Cup. And now, when you're seeing, I know for different reasons, but when you're seeing, you know, Liverpool being forced really into playing their under-23 side in the FA Cup, and teams using, and what's it going to be like this season with, you know, the number of games being played? You're probably going to have teams that have got one team for a Carabao Cup and an FA Cup, and a totally different team for the league game. And it does sadden me, but again, that's something that's changed, and I don't think we're going to do anything to change that back again.
I think so, Jeff, and I love that comment because you just said it there, and for me that's the joy of the FA Cup, that you get to referee low league players, and non-league players get to be refereed by Premier League managers, and it's just an amazing thing, an amazing opportunity. So for me, it's the magic, and it makes it special for players, referees, fans, clubs, teams alike, and for me, it needs to be brought back, and it needs to be brought back in the best possible way.
Thing is, mate, they've completely bastardised the FA Cup. I believe it's when they allowed United to miss the year because of the World Club Cup. I don't think it's ever been the same since then, because the top clubs since then have viewed it as maybe third most important, And I still believe that really the top clubs do not care about it until they reach the semi-final. Up till then, it is what it is. They don't care. So, and I find that a bit frustrating, mate. So I tell you what, mate. Just while we wait for Jeff to come back in, we'll have a little chat about some of the stories from this week. One which caught my eye today, which was it's rumours, isn't it? The transfer window's open, but a certain Mr. Ronaldo, linked with a move back to Spain, but not to Madrid, to Barcelona. Nope. They don't need him though, do they? Unless they sell Dembele to United or someone.
Do they need him? Do they need him? Do they need him? No. But
how old is Suarez though?
I think he's well in his 30s, isn't he? But I look at the picture for Ronaldo though, that he's achieved everything he wants in the game, and there's probably one thing he's probably missing, and that's playing alongside arguably the best player in the world. So for me, if he wants to go out on a real high and he wants to emulate something, I think that's the carrot, and that's the only carrot I can see, because he's always competed against him. Would it work them both playing together? Time will tell. They obviously can't score that many goals because they'll end up winning 10-0 every week, because the amount of goals that they scored individually, surely they can't emulate that together, because that would just be ridiculous. But it'd be very interesting. You know, I do like them being separate, because it's him versus him, and I think when they're in the same team, it can't be him versus him anymore, because they're both in the same team, pushing in the same direction. So I think that's got to change. Whereas, and I still don't think you could have the debate of who's better if they're in the same team. I don't think you can
separate them. I
totally agree. It's like Marmite. You know what I mean? People have their opinions, and for me, it's all about goals. It's all about stats, and for me, they're both different players. They're both different type of players. They both play for different types of teams. Barcelona playing in a certain type of way. Real Madrid and who's he play for now? Juventus playing in a certain type of way as well. So it's different, totally different.
So yeah, I think I watched an interview actually. I came across it on Facebook, and they said they interviewed both of them sat next to each other. It was really a bit awkward because Messi doesn't speak English, and they did the interview in English. It was at the Ballon d'Or Awards, yeah. So it was a bit awkward, but like they do actually genuinely seem like they got a lot of respect for each other, and they seem like relatively friendly as you can be when you've been at that point. They had been like rivals with club and individually for 12, 13 years. Yeah. I mean,
listen, they'll respect each other utmost, because it's not easy doing what they're doing. It's not easy playing football. It's not easy being the best in the world. It's not easy chasing each other.
I know, mate. I struggle with it every day.
And I think when they come up against each other and one of them's getting an award, it's out of respect. The other one's going to get it because they have been that good for a length of years, and it's going to be a sad day when they're both not around, because who else is going to compete? Is it going to be Mbappe against somebody else? Is it going to be him on his own? Is it going to be somebody new? I think they've really refreshed football and pushed it to another level. And whoever does take the next mantle is going to be under severe pressure, because they're always going to be compared to those two. Likewise, those two have always been compared to Pele and Maradona.
The thing is, though, mate, do you think they not only changed the game in terms of both being so good at the same time? We have never really seen that where you've got two players who are that good, but it's the levels that they've done it at. Not just one season of scoring like 50 goals. It's like season after season they both score like 50 goals in all competitions. Now, I don't think, like, even if, say, Mbappe goes or, turns out to be the player he is, or Griezmann, or all these players who look like maybe they have the potential to go on and be something, I don't think they'll necessarily reach those levels, because I think those levels that Ronaldo and Messi have set are so high that I think the players who win the Ballon d'Or in the future, they won't necessarily reach those same levels.
Will people be able to do it for the periods that they've done it for? I'll say no now. I don't believe there will be. And I seen a picture of Ronaldo the other day on his holiday, and he's made of stone. You know what I mean? He's absolutely made of stone. He looks, you know what I mean? He looks like a 21-year-old. And ridiculous, for somebody of his age to look after himself, to stay as fit as he has, to be a dad, a family man. And listen, it's not easy. All these things coming as a young man, all the pressure which goes with it, all the stress, and you know what I mean. Yes, he's well paid and things, but he's under pressure. He's in the limelight. He's not allowed to go to the shops like we are. He's not allowed to do certain things like we are, and it's he deserves all the credit and all the plaudits he's got in his life, and you know what I mean. And Messi as well. You know that he keeps himself a little bit more under the radar, but is just as good, if not better. You know the comparisons is different, and we'll have to wait and see.
Indeed, mate. Indeed. Yeah. I tell you what, Ant, do you want to just mute your mic and give Jeff a ring just to see if he's struggling with something? Because I don't know. You know what's what, as it were.
Leave it with me, I will, and I'll do it now.
All right, mate. In the meantime, people, if you want to send in some views and questions and stuff, which I'll answer while he gives Jeff a ring, see if Jeff's all right and stuff. He might be struggling to get back on. But once Andy's back on now, we're also going to talk about the Champions League and the Europa League for this week. It's been really interesting. I've got to say, I'm really glad to see the back of Atletico Madrid, because I find them absolutely mind-numbingly boring to watch. I really like Leipzig. It's mad though. Leipzig only formed 10 years ago, their first Champions League semi-final. I would love to see them get to the final, maybe even go all the way. I was a bit disappointed to see Atlanta crash out. They nearly got to Paris, but they just couldn't get there in the end.
The Champions League side's been. I don't know. I'm a little bit disappointed with it, to be honest. You know, yes, I know that UEFA wanted it to get done and they wanted to put it in the same country to play like a World Cup format, but I don't know. For me, the teams are flying to Portugal anyway, so they could have just flew to the representative countries, fly and play the game and fly back. Because I just think it just takes a little bit of it. And when you've got Atlanta, for example, you know what I mean? I think if it was on their home ground, even with no fans, I think they would have been able to probably hold out for that draw, which they probably deserved and needed. And because I look at a side like Atlanta and I feel really sorry for them, Si, and I feel really sorry for them because they're probably going to lose half their team because they've really overachieved this year. All their players are probably going to move to bigger and better clubs in and around Europe, Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, etc. So next season they're going to be probably left quite short, and it's going to be such a shame for those kind of teams. But individual players, they deserve to be playing at the highest level because they've had a really good season. And likewise, Leipzig as well. You know, we look at Leipzig last night that they won yesterday's game without Werner as well. So it's an amazing achievement. Amazing achievement.
Do you know what? I think that's absolutely disgraceful. By the way, that they're in the Champions League still playing, and Werner was able to be sold, and them, you know, he's been part of their team all season, and then surely the season has to finish before you can start signing players.
Well, yes and no. I think this deal was already done. I don't think they expected the season to drag on as long as it did, and for me, the amount of money which is involved, Chelsea wouldn't have agreed to pay that kind of money with a risk of an injury or a suspension, or there's loads of factors for me. But it's not it's no club's fault. It's UEFA's decision, so they've got to take responsibility of it.
And by the way, the Europa League was a lot better than the Champions League this week. I got to say, it was much more enjoyable. The football was better. Atletico Madrid, I really cannot watch them any longer. They are terrible to watch. Okay, let's go back to some questions because we had a couple of crackers, Jeff. James Costley says, Jeff, feel free not to answer, which is always a good start to a question. But
I thought you'd send me off, actually, Si.
I was getting my red card ready. We'll see what your answer is to these next couple of questions. I might boot you out. But he says, how much truth is there to Mark Halsey's claims that he had been told not to see certain incidents or give certain biases to certain teams in the Premier League?
Well, obviously, I can't speak for what Mark says he's been told. If Mark says he's been told something, then why would he lie? But, you know, you can only give an honest answer. I was never, ever told, but then there was an expectancy. You know, when I refereed the FA Cup final, people from the FA said to me before the game, as if I didn't already know this. I mean, I look stupid, maybe, but I'm not totally stupid. This game's being shown all around the world. Is it? Yeah, the FA Cup final, are you sure? And what they're basically saying is, they don't want controversy. They don't want... And I can understand this, in any game of football. If you're booking someone for something daft in the first minute, you are putting yourself on a little bit of a knife edge. But, as a referee, you can go into the game. If a referee goes into a game thinking, well, I'm going to send some players off today, he shouldn't be within a million miles of a whistle. But if you go into a game, sometimes, take, for example, the cup final I refereed, it was probably one of the easiest cup finals there's ever been to referee. Man United won comfortably. There was a couple of incidents, minor incidents. So basically, I got lucky. You get a referee like Howard Webb, who got to the very top because he was a brilliant referee. He referees the World Cup final, and both teams go out there with every intention to kick hell out of each other. Now, if you've got, as a referee, no matter whether you're the arrogant, the egotistical, useless, whatever you are, if 22 players are going out there and are not going to listen to you, and are not going to take any notice, then you've got no chance. So, getting back to your original question there's an element of common sense there. I don't know what Mark was told. Mark was a good mate of mine when we were refereeing, so I don't think he's making it up. But the authorities, for the good of the game, for the image of the game, they don't want controversy, but then neither does a referee. If something happens, you've just got to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I don't know whether I've answered his question, but...
Well, like you say, you can't speak for what Mark Halsey was told, obviously.
I just don't see why somebody would lie about it, It's
a weird thing to lie about, isn't it?
It's like a player coming out with in a book and saying that they kicked the ball out intentionally to win a bet, for example. That came out of years ago. I think was it Letitia's book or something. That why would a player lie and why would a referee lie about something which has been said or hasn't been said? That it's just an honest opinion once they've retired.
The only thing happens. I said it then, and I'll say it now. The only thing a referee's got now, we had a bit of banter earlier on, and everyone, the great thing about football is everyone, whether you're the referee, the fan, you could be someone that doesn't have a clue about the laws of the game, but everybody is entitled to their opinion. So, and that's the thing that makes football. That's why we all love it. It creates talking points. It creates controversy. Everybody's entitled to an opinion on it. And, people don't like certain referees. People don't like certain players. That's what the game's all about.
Have we lost that though, Jeff, a little bit? That it used to be a talking point in the pub, in the dressing room about having a referee refereeing a game. But now with V.A.R, we don't have it.
Yeah,
we don't have that kind of conversation.
Exactly, that's what used to worry me about. I mean, if you're talking about goal line technology, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The goal is the most important thing. Is a goal scored or not? And that has actually helped referees because you used to get that stupid statement that people used to make when everyone in the ground could see it was over the line. No, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You could see it if you're watching it on the telly in slow motion, but if you're in row 1, 100 yards away, you can't see it's gone over the line. And now with the goal line technology, where you see a goal is given or not given by a millimetre, and the linesman, assistant referee, or whatever they're called nowadays, is 50, 60 yards away, and the ball's thrashed in at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. The referee, the linos, had absolutely no chance on those split decisions. But now, goal line technology has helped, and it's made people aware how difficult it was.
On that then, Jeff, so obviously the main talking point of the season has obviously got to be the goal or not goal of Sheffield United against Aston Villa. Obviously it kept Aston Villa in the Premier League.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
Did it not?
It did. No, it did.
No, it didn't.
It did. It did.
It didn't.
It did though, because it was they went out on they stayed up on goal difference. If that ends a draw, if that's a goal, they lose they might have lost the game.
Right. What
Which-
you're telling me is mathematically correct.
Yeah.
But over a 38 game, over a 38
Oh yeah,
game,
yeah. No,
Oh,
I
of
agree
course,
with you.
yeah.
I agree with
over a 38 game season,
Deserve to
it
stay up.
it was the chances, the goalkeeping errors, the missed centre forward shots on goal, and a 1,001 other things. Because if it always people turn around and say, well, that cost us the point. And yes, on that day, one team might have got a point, one team might have got 3 points. But why does a team get relegated at the end of the season?
Because
They
of the
didn't
worst
get-
team. Well,
They didn't get relegated because the goal line technology didn't work for the first ever occasion. Why they got relegated or the team lost was because over 38 games they were crapping, most of them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
But-
easy to point it at one. It's like in
Okay.
a game of. It's like in a game of football, and I'll take the defensive support the referee's stance on every occasion on this one. You know, in the 89th minute, and it's hard for me to justify what I'm going to say now. In
Some.
they say, well, that cost the team the game. What about in the 5th minute when somebody missed a set? Or what about in the 18th minute when something else happened? You know, during the course of any 90-minute game, there can be scores of incidents that if they'd gone differently, the result would have been different. So,
Of course.
You know,
But when that technology fails, VAR has to step in and say to
I
the referee,
agree with you. I mean,
has
that was,
to.
it
What's
was
the point?
joke.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah,
you
I
know-
agree with you 100%
But
on that.
but then on that, Jeff, as well, though. So forget about technology, forget about goal line technology, forget about VAR. Should the linesman have not done better as well?
Well-
on the goal side, because he was that side of the net as well, was he not? If my memory serves me right.
I almost wonder, and I can't speak from experience because I've not been involved in this, but you know, when I was an assistant referee before I got onto the referees list, you had certain responsibilities and certain things that you look for. I wonder now, with everything else going in the penalty area, whether the assistant referee isn't perhaps even looking to see whether the ball's gone over the line because
He doesn't need to.
he doesn't need to. There's a full proof. There's two players barging for possession, holding shirts or not holding shirts. Is he focusing on that now? Because he doesn't need to worry about whether the ball's an inch or two over the line, because we've got this foolproof system that for the first time, I mean, somebody quoted it was X 100 times it's been used. And on this occasion, it didn't work. But I agree with both of you on that one.
But Jeff, doesn't that annoy you though that I watched the game because obviously it was the first game back. I was quite excited to have football back. I was unsure how it was going to work, etc. But all I saw was the Sheffield United players berating the referee that even if it was over the line, it wasn't over the line. He's the last person who can see it over the line because of his position, because he's not going to position himself on the line or behind the goal.
No, well, it's
Shouldn't
like,
he have used the technology though and said to because the referees
Oh, but, yeah,
can
I'm
ask
saying,
to
though,
see the screen, can't they?
I'm saying though, because technology is like Jeff just said, it's foolproof, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's never had a problem in it. I'm on about the players shouldn't be berating the referee. It should be talking to the linesman or
but in the heat of the moment, who else are the players going to berate? You know, the problem, as I understood it, and again, it's not something I ever experienced because it wasn't there then. The problem was that the system, even though they've got the system, and I'm totally with you two on this one, if you've got something that helps you get the right decision, use it. But evidently, they're not allowed to, because that's what the laws say, the rules say. They're not allowed to use VAR. They're only allowed to use it for certain things. And goal line technology isn't one of them. So you can imagine the person at Stockley Park looking at the screen going, well, that ball's over the line, but I'm not allowed. There'd have been hell on with the FA and everything if
But they're not using it properly anyway. They're not following what you...
We know that.
So if they
I'm
may...
agreeing with you. What did I say at the very beginning? I don't think VAR is being used, but that was not the fault of VAR on the night.
Oh, of course. It's the
They were not
technology, isn't it?
allowed to. Now, they should have been allowed to, if I'm refereeing that game of football and I'm out there in the middle, I'm having a nice, easy game, the game's going fine, and all of a sudden there's a major controversial incident. If somebody, I don't care who they are, I don't care if it's the man on the moon, if someone can tell me categorically, Jeff, that ball was over the line, I'll accept that because it's crucial to everything. But because of the bloody stupid way that they have VAR, and that is where, for me, and that's probably not the first time, but we're certainly all in agreement on that. On that particular night, on that particular incident, they had something as a fallback,
Yeah.
First, I mean, the referee, and I can imagine and feel for the referee on that night because the ball's gone in, somebody's appealed for a goal, the referee's looked at his watch, this wonderful foolproof system that's taken away all the aggro over, was it over the line, wasn't it over the line? And the player's shouting at me, ref, it was over the line. No, it wasn't, because my watch is telling me it wasn't.
Would you enjoy all this technology, Jeff? Would you enjoy having goal line technology and VAR and everything in place?
No, I honestly am glad. I mean, it's like looking back, would you like to be playing nowadays? Yes, I'd like to be refereeing nowadays. Yes, I'd like to be younger. Yes, I'd still like to be as fit as I was. Yes, I'd certainly like to be earning the money that players and referees are now earning. But would I want to be involved in the game the way it is at the moment? Categorically no, because I don't honestly think. And when you say, I used the word earlier and people could misconstrue this when I talked about banter and fun. People start to say, oh, well, you weren't taking it seriously. It was just a joke. No, I'm talking about there was an enjoyment. It was a responsible job. But, if no matter what job you've got, you can enjoy doing the job as well as doing the job to a high standard.
I totally agree.
I just think nowadays I wouldn't enjoy being part of it because if someone turned around to me and said, in that instance, like this season, you're not allowed to go across at the screen. You're not allowed to ask someone, well, was that ball over the line? What's gone wrong? I'd have done that, and I'd have got kicked off. I'd have been bollocked.
Yeah.
I've not done what their system wants you to do.
But I think it is a lot more serious, Jeff. And I think referees. Yeah, I remember when I was injured one time at Middlesbrough, and I went to Lilleshall to do some rehab. And a lot. I don't know if you were there, but a lot of the referees at Premier League, a lot of the referees were there. They were doing some fitness work, and they were doing some work together, and they were having loads of fun. And I just thought that this is not a side where people see referees they were all working extremely hard, all getting to a level that they wanted to do, but at the same time they were being normal human beings because that's what they were and that's what they are.
If you imagine, and I think there was was a bit on Sky a couple of years ago where Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville went into one of the referees' training camps, and they saw a totally different side of it. Now, when you imagine the banter in the dressing room, that was the same with us when we were all away training. The Mickey taking, and I mean, if you've popped up on the Saturday and it's been on Match of the Day, I'll tell you something, as a referee, you're going to get more sticks from your fellow referees than you are from anybody else, media managers or anyone. They were absolutely cruel as anything with each other. And that sort of strengthens the character. It makes you go out and not want to be in the limelight for the wrong reasons. Because, the greatest thing from a referee's point of view is that you do your game, you come home, you go and have a beer, and nobody's talking about you. No referee in his right mind wants to see his name and splattered across the newspapers for having made this wrong decision or cost a team promotion or whatever. And the banter it was nice when there was a little bit of publicity because, believe it or not, they are human beings.
Yeah, I totally agree. But also, we go back to that word, Jeff, and it's respect. And I used to love watching Italian football and watch Channel 4 on a Sunday morning, watch all the goals and seeing was it Luigi Collina?
Yeah.
The bald-headed referee who just used to his eyes and his persona and he got total respect. You got total respect. Uriah Rennie used to really scare the life out of me every time he refereed me. Yeah, but it was with respect, you know, that the referees didn't take no nonsense from people, and I just don't see that now. I don't see the camaraderie between individuals, people, players, managers, fourth officials.
Well,
It seems like a war every time a game is being
maybe,
played.
maybe it's the way the game's gone, because it's all telephone numbers now, isn't it? And also, we've got social media now where everybody's an expert on not just football, politics, Corona, COVID-19, whatever they want to call it. Everybody knows everything, when the truth of the matter is most people know bugger all about anything.
Yeah.
But everybody thinks they know everything. And with football and with refereeing, everybody's an expert. Everybody. I watch football. The one thing that riles me more than anything about football is when you're listening to the commentator and you're listening to the pundits talking absolute crap, because they're not even aware of the laws of the game. They're not, there'll be an incident in the game tonight, and the commentator they'll be saying, "Well, I just don't understand why the referee has given that," and I'm like screaming at the television, "It was a handball," and they haven't seen it, or it was offside, or whatever. But everybody's the expert. The problem you've got now with football is that, I'd go and referee a game in the Premier League on a Saturday afternoon, and if I was lucky, the bit that was controversial might not have been on Match of the Day. Yeah. So it would go under the radar. Nowadays, everybody sees everything more. If you sat at a football game now, and, from the stand, you think to yourself, that wasn't a penalty. But 2 seconds later, your phone's bleeping because somebody's watching it either officially or on a dodgy box somewhere, wherever they're watching it. And within seconds, there's a buzz going round the ground because it was a penalty, or the commentator said it was a penalty. And, there's a lot of things going on with the game nowadays that wasn't around in our day, Andy.
So talk about, then, while you're on that point then, so how influential and how good or bad are big screens showing incidents in the game? If that's a good incident, a bad incident, a goal, something, you know what I mean? Should it just be for the score and the score only, or they should be allowed to do what they desire to put on?
Well, they can't, because the authorities won't let them. So the sort of thing, if you're sat in a ground, I mean, this has been the big criticism of V.A.R, that the punters in the ground that have paid the money sat there clueless as to sometimes what even's being investigated. But, if there's a situation in the game of football, they're not, or certainly in my day, they were not allowed to show that controversial incident. And, the fact that the idea was that, there might be some fans, especially back in the day, there could be riots in football grounds because, the referee's ruled out or given a penalty or something. If it's shown on the big screen there and then, you're going to get a reaction. So, but, times they are changing, and we've got to listen to the punters. But unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have any punters, and that's probably a sad thing, because football is continuing to go on without the most important people, and the most important people after the players, it's certainly not the referees, it's those people who go and pay to watch football every week.
Were you happy, Jeff, with football coming back without the supporters being there? I know. Obviously, you've watched hundreds and hundreds of games a season. So you know what I mean. So, what's your thoughts on not being able to go and watch anything at the minute?
I think I've got a little bit used to it, and if you common sense, you say, well, let's look at the bigger picture. I mean, there's lots of things going on to do with this, pandemic, where you can't get your head round. You've got to go in a shop with a mask on, but you can go into a restaurant without one. Lots of things you don't understand, but I mean, I always believe, and it's something I know after your pro days, you were involved in the North East in non-league football. And I mean, I was furious where you had teams, let's look in our patch of the world. You've got Stockton Town and Redcar Athletic that have won leagues, all bar, a few games to go, 20 points clear or whatever, and they don't get given the title. Then you get other leagues where teams are, it's promotions, relegations, the future of clubs, the future of players at those clubs has gone out the window because they have decided on average points and that. I would love to have seen football continue or only continue when fans were back. But then we all needed football to come back. And if I've got to sit in the house, I'd rather sit in the house watching football than watching nothing.
Yeah.
My big fear is it's not for Rangers, it's not for Man United, Liverpool or anybody else. It's for the teams further down the pyramid, indeed non-league football, who absolutely survive, not on millions from TV, but survive on punters going through the gates. So
yeah, and that's what gets me. I've watched loads of games since this. I watched the Scottish Premier at the weekend. I watched the Rangers game at the weekend. I watched Championship football obviously when it was on. I watched the Champions League, and football's just not the same, and it's nothing without fans. And I try to look at it from my own personal point of view. That would I have enjoyed playing? How would I have got myself up for a game? I'm not saying I never got myself up for a game, but it's the fans have an important part to play in that, and scoring a goal. How would I react to scoring a goal when there's nobody there? It's all this a strange feeling for me.
Well, you know this. Well, you get used to not celebrating a goal because bloody V.A.R. decide whether it was in or not.
Yeah.
But you know, I agree with you. You know yourself when you come back from an injury or one thing and another, and you're playing for the reserves. You know, on my way up the ladder before I got to the Football League and the Premier League, obviously the level you refereed at, you'd be refereeing reserve team football.
Yeah.
I refereed Sunderland, Newcastle and Newcastle Sunderland at St James's Park and Roker Park. And they did have a crowd in, you know, because it was a big game. But you're going through some of those games and you've got a pro that's just playing because he's not being picked for the first team. He's coming back from injury. And they're sort of looking at how long left, Chef, blow the whistle, for God's sake. They don't want to be out there.
Yeah.
So it is different. But in all honesty, I think the players, despite the fact there's not being crowds there, I haven't seen too much evidence of people going through the motions. Because, you know, most games there is something at stake on, or there has been.
Yeah.
And come on, I want to be back watching football as soon as possible tomorrow afternoon if I can, please. But in the meanwhile, you know, at least we've got some football to watch.
Well, we're on about football to watch. But 7 minutes gone in the game in the Champions League. It's Barcelona 1.
I'm watching it on Sky Q. I don't know anything about it.
Oh well, you've missed 2 goals. That's all I'm saying.
All right. That's the old. That's the old likely lads one, isn't it? You don't want to watch that.
You don't want to watch that now. It'll be 0-0, Jeff, for the rest of the game.
All right, Jeff, to kind of finish this off, we're going to go through some of the questions which people have sent in, give a little bit of a Q&A towards you. So we've got Craig Sullivan asked, right at the start of the show, he said, what happened with the trial where there was going to be, if there was any arguing with the referees, they would move the free kick forward like they do in rugby. Did that ever come close to becoming a thing?
Well, that was way back in my day. But again, the authorities got it wrong because the only way you could move it forward was if you were cautioning a player. And I used to think, well, that's defeating the object because the whole idea was like in rugby, it was a deterrent. So, you know, you didn't show the yellow card, you moved it forward, and then you'd actually get players from their own team turning round and saying, shut your gob, you know, you've cost us 10 yards. But on the other side of that, and, you know, what Andy touched on before, us going into dressing rooms, and Brian Robson was manager at Middlesbrough. I've gone in pre-season, told them what was going to be happening. He says, come on, Jeff, how are we going to get round that? And there was one famous incident in a game, I think it was Sunderland at Man United, where Man United had a free kick, just in excellent range for Beckham to get it up and over the wall. And was it Gavin McCann? Cat McCann that used to play for Sunderland.
Yeah, Gavin McCann,
yeah. He just ran up and wellied the ball away, so that got a yellow card, and the ball's moved 10 yards further forward, just outside the penalty area, and of course Becks couldn't get the ball up and over the wall. So players being players, no matter what the laws are, they'll always find a way around them. But yeah, I think that law, it's a bit like, I'm critical of V.A.R. now because I don't think they're using it to the best effect. That one, to stop dissent, if they'd used it without necessarily having to apply a yellow card as a deterrent, I think it would have been a good idea, because you don't see it in rugby. You don't see people criticise, showing open dissent to the referees.
Because they know it'll cost them, and that's the thing, is they know it will cost them, whether it's being moved forward or they get a sin bin or whatever.
Yeah,
but I think though in football law, like Jeff just touched on it there. For somebody like David Beckham or somebody who's really good at free kicks, if you go closer towards a goal, you're getting punished as well a little bit. That sometimes you need to be putting a. David Beckham would have preferred 22, 25 yards out, where if he goes to 18, 16 yards, he can't get the ball up and over. He's got to go down a different technique, and it's just.
What happens with the law changes is that when you were a footballer, Andy, when were you ever asked your opinion on what the law changes should be?
Oh, never. No.
When was a top manager ever asked his opinion?
Yeah, never.
When was a top referee ever asked? There's people in these ivory towers that come out. I mean, some of the changes and some of the things. This kind of scenario this season about a handball, to be quite honest, I can't even quote it because I'm that bloody confused by it. You can't score a goal if an attacker the ball accidentally hits his hand on the way into a goal, but you don't get a penalty if it accidentally hits a defender on the line. And I'm thinking, who on earth in the right mind has complicated what was really a fairly straightforward situation? So
But the whole handball thing, though, Jeff, it annoys me when I see defenders defending with their hands behind the back, and defenders need to be standing ready to pounce, and if the ball hits their arm, you're not going to intentionally flick the ball up and hit somebody in their arm if their hands are in an unnatural position, and that's the word. These kind of names and these kind of things that are being taken away and changed, it just annoys me, because if your body's in an unnatural position, your hands are up in the air, it's handball. If it hits you on the arm and your arm's by your side, what can you do? You can't define gravity. You've got to stop yourself from falling over.
I agree. I mean, in my day, you had players like, one of the first players, and I'm not blaming him for all the faults in the world, but one of the first defenders I thought that was very, very clever was John Terry. Because John Terry used to, when people used to talk about Peter Schmeichel, he always, as a goalkeeper, which is his right, he always used to make himself bigger. When he came off the line, his arms were out. He made the target for the attacking player smaller. And John Terry he was one of the first, and there's probably lots of others, when he ran out to block a shot, he sort of made himself bigger. Now, if making yourself bigger is by extending your arms out away from your side, to me, that's a deliberate act. So if the ball is driven in and hits John Terry, if I'm using him as an example, hits his arm that's been deliberately held a couple of feet away from his body, fine. To me, give that as a penalty. But the other ones where, the ball just flicks up off someone and hits somebody on the arm and it's a complete accident, I'm sorry. That's something, Don't forget, it says there's a very important word under my name on that title, X. And I'm now a fan. I'm the same as the people watching your show. I'm the same as, Simon, who's a passionate fan. And that's what I've gone back to being. And I get all the grief when I'm watching football. People are saying, why has he done that? I don't know.
I've been there, Jeff, and I think it's quite funny. I think it's quite funny, actually.
Well,
here's a question.
We've worked together.
Yeah, it's good. I love it.
On that note, Mark Sherwood asks, in the Champions League, you've got a ref, a linesman, fourth official, the officials behind the goal line. What is their jobs? Because no one seems to know.
There's another scenario of something that could have been good, not being good, because they didn't use, in my opinion, those officials on the goal line. They didn't use them correctly. They didn't even have them, in my opinion, on the right side of the pitch. Because I remember ringing Howard Webb and saying to him, Howard, why have they got? Because you think of the Thierry Henry handball against the Republic of Ireland. That happens on the referee's blind side, on the left-hand side of the pitch. They have the extra officials on the same side as the assistant referee. So there's still no one covering that blind side. And, he told me why they did it, because it was affecting the patrol path of the referee. And I'm thinking, no. If you're going to have because the general consensus of fans and players was that those two blokes stood in the tracksuit bottoms with a little flag thing or whatever it was, were a waste of bloody time.
Yeah.
They didn't bring anything to the party.
Well,
but they could have brought so much to the party.
Oh yeah, 100%, Jeff. Here's a kind of follow-up question, partly from me, and then I'm going to throw in a question which Gaz has just put in. But do you think by adding the extra officials, you had the fourth official, those behind the line, then you add in technology, it's affected the referees' decision-making? Because I feel like they're almost second-guessing themselves because there's so many extra officials. So I don't know whether they hinder rather than help the referees that they're supposed to. And Gaz asked, do you think V.A.R and technology has made referees less forceful and brave in their decision-making?
I agree with you entirely, Si, and one of your punters that passed the comment. Forget football for a minute. I know it's a football show, but watch a rugby league game, watch a cricket match, and now, because of this technology in the background, you've got officials, certainly in rugby league, not making decisions because, and why should they? If you've got if I'm giving a decision in real time, I'm giving it. End of story. In my day, I've given it. I stand or fall by it. If match of the day later on proves I was wrong, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I'll hopefully learn from my mistake. But if I've got this technology behind me that is checking into things and can look at all these camera angles in slow motion, I'm some sort of idiot if I'm going to put my neck on the line. Because if I insist that I am right and then technology proves that I'm wrong, what sort of fool am I? So you've got the match officials, I think, out there now, more or less adopting the stance of, now to do with me, hang on a minute, let's wait, the tapping at the rear and doing all this palaver, waiting to be told. So yes, I think some referees are not as brave as they would have been without the technology.
Yeah.
And that side of it, until they use the technology to the benefit of the game, to get the wrong decisions, to get things that referees need help with, until they start using all of that correctly, I think we'll be having this conversation at the end of next season and the season after.
Yeah.
I just hope they'll learn from. There's been a lot of mistakes. It's dead easy to be critical because everybody finds it easier to be critical than offer praise nowadays. But maybe they've learned. Hopefully they've learned from. But then have they learned? Because the other night we're watching football there in Europe, and they went into some great dialogue about where the arm ends and where it's a handball, what's the shoulder, and I'm just left scratching my head.
Yeah.
They're making a science out of something that was basically, it's a sport, it's something quite simple. Let's make it easy for fans to understand, whereas now it's just being turned into it's a political minefield every time there's an incident.
I totally agree. I think as well, you just said it there, Jeff, about it didn't need to be complicated as much as it is. So, you know what I mean? Why fix something if it's not broken, so to speak? And it's annoyed me over the course of time. You know what I mean? Being a centre forward, I wanted to see more goals, so that they give centre forwards the light of day, for example, with offsides, and now and then V.A.R now is just killing centre forwards. So I just think they've gone back over now a little bit.
You know, when you're doing these Q&A sessions, people used to say to me, "What would you change? What would you change to make the game better?" And I always used to say, goal line technology, yeah, because it's vital. Is it a goal? Isn't it a goal? And as we talked earlier about the Aston Villa Sheffield United game, crucial in the context of any game of football. I would have sin bins in, because then instead of a player getting suspended against someone else 2 months down the line, if you were a team that's kicking lumps out of the opposition, I'd have sin bins, because then the people who are getting lumps kicked out of them, they stand a better chance of getting some benefit on the day. And the other thing I'd do, and I'm really flabbergasted that this hasn't happened, because it's all about money and sponsorship, I'd have a stadium clock that's just like in basketball, ice hockey and many other sports, that's in a countdown. So instead of arguing how long is to go and blaming the referee and there should have been more time and Fergie having to look at his watch every 5 minutes, there could be a stadium clock that when the game's stopped, it's stopped. When it's restarted, it's restarted. And then there's no arguments about, because that's still, people still whinge on about, the referee's added on too much, he hasn't added on enough. To me, they're little minor tweaks, Andy. But the other thing I say about football, and you said there, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Football was around a hell of a long time before any of us. And most certainly and hopefully, football will still be around a long time after any of us. So they must be doing more right than they're doing wrong. And at the moment, we just seem to be complicating the beautiful game. We seem to be taking some of the fun for fans, for players, for everybody, and even for officials out of it. And the sooner we get back, give the referees hell where it's justified. But now, and I mean, my pet hate at the moment, and I know I'm wrong, offside is offside. But to me, we should go back to when there's daylight. And I know you as a centre forward would agree with it.
Yeah,
100%.
But,
we've seen some wonderful goals. I mean, you think the one that I come back to, the Man City Tottenham Champions League, was it semi-final?
Yeah, right the death,
We've got a winner there from Sterling, a winner. And then he's part of his tour is offside. Now, by the letter of the law, that is right. By the letter of my law, that's killing the game. And I think most people would never agree with a referee. But I tell you something, 99.9% of fans, I think, would agree with me on that one. We're not using technology to its best effect, and we're harming the game rather than helping it.
The other thing as well is the Premier League is not even using V.A.R. the way that FIFA has told everybody to use it. So, and that, I find that infuriating. I find that really arrogant from the Premier League, that they think, we know better, so we'll just do it our way. We'll do it this way because this is the way that we should do it. But while the rest of Europe, the referee goes and checks the screen at the side of the pitch and, all this different stuff. It is infuriating.
I agree with you, Si, totally 100% on that one. And why the Premier League or the authorities in this country won't allow them, because that, again, taking the referee side, I think at times that harms our referees, because, if they're not doing and practicing the way that FIFA and UEFA want it done, are our guys going to get the top games in Europe? Because surely, I noticed Anthony Taylor was refereeing one of the quarter-finals in the Champions League the other night. Surely, because it's that tournament, he has got to use the screen. He has got to do it the way that is happening across the rest of Europe. And why I think the main reason that they were saying that people were whinging, that there was all these stoppages and the stoppages were too long. But wouldn't you rather wait for 3 minutes and get the decision right than rush something in 30 seconds and get it wrong? It just doesn't make sense to me. So, and we don't seem, unless we're not listening to the right TV programmes, we don't see or hear as much controversy about VAR in other leagues across the world as we do.
Know how to use it. I got to be honest. I think technology in cricket has made cricket better. Same in rugby league, same in rugby union. In football, I would be happy to, which is ironic because we were discussing the failure of goal line technology. I'd be happy to go back to just goal line technology and, just some sort of extra officials by the goal line or something like that. I would quite happily get rid of V.A.R. I think it takes away more than it gives in terms of helping football as a viewing thing, as a fan, as anything. I don't think it's. I just don't like it. I think it takes away more than it gives.
I hate to say this, but you and I started off at the beginning of the show, cross swords, flying at each other, disagreeing about Mark Clattenburg. The longer it's gone on, I'm agreeing with virtually everything you're saying. And the reason I think
don't finish like this, Jeff.
No, let's have one little sneak. No, I think the reason I'm agreeing with you,
it's because I'm right,
is because arrogant. It's you. It's all about you, isn't it? Totally arrogant. Big I am because I'm right.
That's it.
So
right.
I think the reason we agree is because whether you're a player, whether you're a referee, or whether you're a fan, we're all fans. And if all of us are saying the same thing, surely they could do this differently. Surely they could do this better. Then I'm sorry, but I don't think we're all wrong.
No, I agree.
That's spot on.
I agree.
Okay, Jeff, to finish off, we're going to go for, it's a little slight, normally we do Magnificent 7, but we're going to go with question time. So me and Andy are going to take it in turns to ask you sort of questions. Just give us a quick answer to each one, and no passing allowed. Okay, question time with Jeff Winter. Jeff, what is your favourite and least favourite referees of all time, and why?
Cool. I like George Courtney from the northeast of England.
I like George.
Shout.
Brilliant guy, George. Was very helpful to me in my early days, so I'll put George Courtney up there with the best. The worst. Don't you, Andy? Let's just say, in a dressing room, not everybody gets on well together.
I agree.
In my day, not all of us got on well together. And let's just say Graham Paul and I weren't the best of mates.
Now that doesn't surprise me.
And there's a little song to go with that, but I better not stick it on here.
Right, my go, Jeff. Right, so I think we might know the answer to this unless you've been hiding this game. But what's the biggest game you've ever refereed?
It's got to be the FA Cup final. There was better games, and but from a referee's point of view in this country, you only normally until this year you only ever get the FA Cup final once.
Yeah.
So it's got to be the FA Cup final.
Fab.
Did you ever make a high-profile mistake and realise during the game?
I refereed for 25 years at all levels, and I don't recall ever making a mistake, really. Every decision I think I was lucky. There are certain referees. I mean, obviously, Polly is remembered for his 3 yellow cards, and other referees sort of go to the grave with an incident that's labelled against them. I think I just made millions of little mistakes. Millions. And people listening tonight will probably say it was more than that.
I like that.
I don't think I ever made, unless, of course, your listeners can quote example dates and times from 1983 or something. I don't think I ever made a massive headline posting.
No.
I just made millions of little ones.
Believe me, Jeff, they would have let you know about it. They let me know about misses, penalty misses, red cards, all sorts. So, yeah, don't worry about it. They let you know. And finally, Jeff, what was Roy Keane like to referee?
Challenge, but Roy Keane was the best way to sum up Roy Keane was. Have you seen Roy Keane on the television lately?
Yes.
Roy Keane is a complex character. In his plus side, I would say he was an absolute and utter winner. He was focused on anything and everything on the game. Did I ever have any banter with him? No. In fact, I think the longest conversation I ever had with Roy Keane was when he was captain of Man United. Before the game, he'd say heads or tails, and that was about as in-depth conversation I ever had with him. Great footballer, a winner, but he wasn't. You know, when we talked earlier about the banter and the crap that helped the referee man the game, well, you had to work on other Man United players because you were never going to get any banter and crap with Roy Keane, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, brilliant, great answers.
Jeff, really appreciate you coming on, my friend. I enjoyed that thoroughly.
Loved it.
Also going to get plenty of clips from that, I think. Plenty of clips.
I'm sorry you found the need to send me off halfway through, but I probably deserved it.
It was payback, Jeff, I think. Payback from him.
Well. I don't know what you mean. Football fans don't hold grudges. Yeah, of course. No, I enjoyed it, and we'll be back on Monday with a live show, 7:30, the Andy Campbell Football Show with ex-Middlesbrough, Scotland International, Robbie Stockdale. Of course, big thank you to Black Diamond Sports and Bespoke Financial. Of course, check all the links and everything in the description. Check out their stuff, check out their websites. Really good companies to help you out, depending on what you need. Subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. We had a busy week of shows, 7 in 7 days, I believe it was, or 8, maybe even 8, of just shows on all sorts. Cricket, football, some really top guests. Had some of the biggest names in cricket. Okay, Andy, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, I'll see you Monday.
Indeed, and we'll have another different fun show next Friday before the championship season starts, so keep an eye out on social media for announcements. Cardiff City fans, keep an eye out on the Ace Podcast Nation channel, because you might see something interesting dropping soon, which is something completely different. Whoa. But we will see, but Leslie just said it's 4-1 to Bayern Munich.
Wow.
Everybody, thank you for joining us, Jeff.
Cheers,
it's been
Jeff.
an absolute honour.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.